Everybody, welcome back to Final Residence TV, and episode number one of what I'm calling Van Halen Stories Down the Rabbit Hole. This is where we go deep down the rabbit hole and look at things that probably you've never known about. And we're going to do these little short stories where we talk about stuff like today's particular topic, which is the childhood home of Eddie Van Halen on Los Lunas. A lot of people know about it, but a lot of people, not very many people have been in there. Carl Jaw was my last guest, who was in there when Eddie was a kid, and Josh Peters, who we're talking to today from Altadena, California, had an opportunity to go into the childhood home. And like I was saying, it's been out of the Van Halen hands since 1987. It's been in a rental state since then. And when renters come in and out, apparently at least once, there's been an open house where people have been allowed to go in and check it out. But in your case, you were able to do this through a renter themselves.
Yeah, it was very lucky. It was actually in between renters, but it was the next person who was about to move in. And they saw me, I just had driven up to the house, I guess, to get a closer look. I wasn't thinking I was going to be able to go in. I just wanted to kind of see where the house was. I'd been living in, Pasadena for a few years at that time. And, just pulled up outside, and I don't remember if I got out of the car first or if I just saw someone walking toward the house and then got out. But someone, I think had a cardboard box full of stuff, like they were kind of moving into the house. And either he saw me or I saw him, and we just kind of started talking. And I said, do you know the history of this house? And he said, yeah, I do. And I knew about that. And then he actually said, do you want to come in and see it? And I said, sure. That's the last thing I expected, was to be able to kind of go into the house. And the interesting thing was, it was completely empty. There was no furniture in there. It was like just total blank slate. He was just about to start, moving his stuff in. And so, yeah, I guess I'll just share my impressions. I mean, first of all, I think people who have seen pictures of it or anything, it's an extremely, extremely small house. I think it's 800 or 900 square feet. Very, very small. And you walk in, and you're in this living room area, and kind of right behind that, I believe, is another sort of room, but I don't even think it's separated by a door. Maybe there are just some built-in kind of shelves that sort of come out perpendicular from the wall, and then there's another space behind there, and then behind that there's another bedroom kind of space. That the kitchen must be somewhere on the right, to the right side of the house. I can't remember really seeing the kitchen, but I just remember walking through the living room, and one of the things that came to mind was, that picture that everyone's seen of that little Eddie with that big, I don't know if it was the Tiesco Del Rey guitar, that with like the 4 pickups or something, with his mother there or something, and he's so small, the guitar looks like a bass, and I think when I saw that picture and then I saw the living room, I was like, oh, that's where this was, like he was here in the living room. Mm-hmm. But then with the 2 bedrooms there, I was thinking, I wonder which was Eddie's and which was Alex's. I found out later that I think Eddie's was the back bedroom, mm-hmm. On the left there, which kind of looks right out onto the backyard. And then just to the right of Eddie's bedroom is the one and only bathroom in the house. There's only one bathroom. So again, it's interesting to think about, these 2 boys, 10 and teenage boys, young adults living with their parents, right. These 4 people in this house with this one tiny bathroom. I can't really overstate how small this bathroom is. And because when I looked at it, it's so small, and I actually, you can step from Eddie's room. I mean, I'm pretty tall, I'm about 6'2", but I could actually step, like have one foot at Eddie's bedroom and then reach my other foot and then step over the entire bathroom into the parents' master bedroom. And it was a bathtub in there, but the bathtub is so short, it doesn't run lengthwise. It's like the width of the bathroom, but even the bathtub is so short, it had to be 4 feet maybe at most, for this whole bathtub. So just this tiny bathroom. And then the master bedroom was right across Eddie's bedroom from the bathroom.
Was the master any bigger than the back room?
I can't really recall.
Okay.
I can't really recall.
Looking at that house, it looks like it's probably pretty much the same size rooms on the.
Yeah, pretty much, because there's just no room for anything. I mean, it's such a small house that it's wild to think of I mean, look, certainly there are families who all live in one room apartments or studio apartments, but it's almost that kind of thing. I mean, there was a backyard and that storage or the shed, the garage in the back, which I'll talk about too. But, you know, and it's California, so you can be outside a lot of the year. The weather's nice, but this was a very tight space that these four people were coexisting in, you know, with like a piano and whatever other instruments. And hearing the Carl Jaw interview was really fascinating to me to try to picture Eddie's bedroom and how things were laid out with like his records and a bureau and like Aunt Marshall heads. You know, I mean, we're talking a tiny, you know, much smaller than the room that you know you're in probably. You know, so
half the
it's
size, half the
yeah.
size of the room I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, they're living their whole lives and playing in bands and moving drums in and out. I don't even know where a drum set would go. I think I remember reading at one point Alex had a drum set set up in the living room, but just real tight quarters, you know, real tight quarters that they were growing up in.
Yeah, and you know the funny thing about that, I guess when we think about, you know, a lot of people don't know this maybe, but most Van Halen fans do. But in '81, Eddie moved out of that house. You know, that was the first time he moved out from his parents' house. Of course, they were on the road from '70 to '81 constantly, but he did live there until he married Valerie and then moved into the hills there where we talked about earlier about his that house up in Studio City, of course, is the way I understand it is she had a smaller house at first, and then they kind of rebuilt that area, and 5150 was kind of there already, I think, but as an outbuilding. But
her house was on that same property.
Yeah, from what I understand. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody knows any different, let me know in the comments. But that's the way I understood it. And some of the early videos you see, like Entertainment Tonight, I think they're at the home, at her home at that point, 82-ish, 83, and it's nothing like the house that he has there now. I mean, there's it's an older school house, but yeah. So they just left that little house and moved. I mean, for him, he moved right into the Hollywood Hills. I mean, and that's an amazing, you know, story in itself. But yeah, well, you know, and then the whole dichotomy of Ross home that you and I both have seen, and the Van Halen home.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing that made it definitely popped into my mind. Well, just when I think the relationship is very complex, just from what I've read and what I know, but between the brothers and Dave, there's like a real love-hate thing, almost, you know, kind of like brothers. But it's impossible to, obviously I've never been inside Dave's house, but he still lives, for those people that don't know, he still lives in the same house that he basically went to high school in when he was living here in Pasadena, and that the band rehearsed in the basement there. It was, you know, his father was an ophthalmologist, like relatively wealthy person. That's really kind of an estate like that Dave lives in. It's like a walled estate, you know, it's a mansion basically. And so he was playing in a band with these two brothers who were, you know, immigrant family, like really working poor, you know. I mean, even saying middle class would maybe, you know, be a stretch.
Yeah.
So I don't know, in my mind, I was thinking this could be some of the resentment, you know, there could be some resentment, or this could be some of the conflict, you know, like this
they really come from different worlds, you know.
Yeah. This like rich doctor's son, you know, and you know, so but I don't know. I mean, that's projecting a little bit, but it definitely popped into my head, knowing where Dave still lives and lived at that time, and then seeing this tiny little, I mean, it's a beautiful, you know, it's a tree-lined street. It's not in a high crime neighborhood. I don't want to make it out to be like,
no, it's gorgeous. Actually.
Yeah. It's not a dangerous area. You know, it's a middle class neighborhood. Yeah, but it's, you know, and for those people that don't live in California, what real estate is, what that house would even cost now, even if it wasn't the Van Halen house and didn't have a history, just what a house like that would cost out here would blow people's minds. Yeah. But it's a very small house. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually listed. It's Proxima made it at about $1 million now.
Yeah, which it doesn't surprise me. I mean, having lived out here and knowing what things cost, but
it's about after the Van Halen guitar sold for $4 million yesterday. Can you imagine what that house is worth?
It's interesting. It's kind of interesting to me in a way, you know, that no one from the family or Wolf or no one wants that house as a, you know, they obviously don't want, I mean, anybody in that family could buy that house like that. And, but, you know, I don't know, they just want to move on, or what would they do with it? Or, I don't know, you know.
I don't know. You know, there's that whole thing with the Van Halens where they're not so retrospective. I mean,
That's
like
interesting.
our fandom is
Yeah,
the whole
that's
thing.
probably healthier. That's good. Yeah, that's good.
For us, it's like some kind of crazy thing, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
for them, it's probably like, yeah, we grew up there, but we moved on. You know.
yeah, yeah. And it could have been, it could have been good memories, and there could have been difficult memories too. But yeah, I mean, it's healthy to kind of move on and not maybe stay stuck in the past and so sentimental about.
Yeah, one of the things that Harold said, now I haven't, this hasn't been released yet on the video, but I'll put it here with you. Is that when the Van Halen brothers' dad lost their finger out back, he was out there. Apparently, I think he was moving a trailer and it fell and cut his finger off. That apparently transformed the brothers into thinking much more about the bottom line and how to bring home, a living. And
Mm,
he had made the mention in his interview that they really got serious about charging for their parties that they did that were always free, and things changed from that point on. So some of those memories could be bad memories. It could be
yeah.
this whole thought of what happened then and his situation. And but there was also their home where they came. They did have an interim home over on Bradford Street. There was a home they lived. It was like a multi-family.
I'm sure it's Bradford because that's where Dave's house is.
That's right. I'm sorry, not Bradford. There's another street
Yeah.
over that way though.
Yeah, I just read that recently. I didn't know that they first lived in an apartment or a multifamily thing before Los Lunas. I thought that was their first house. I
Yeah,
didn't. I
Bradford
didn't
is
know
wrong. You're right. It's something else. But that was actually, I think, in Greg's book, I believe. But anyway, there was a home, a fairly large home that had multiple families in it, and it was basically like a duplex or type thing or multiplex thing. And I was by there when I went. I found it, and so yeah, they had that, and then I don't know whether there was. I think there was another interim between that and Los Lunas, but it was only a couple of years that transpired before they were at Los Lunas. So,
that.
yeah, Los Lunas is the whole home and the whole history of it, and the fact that it's been off the market since '87 and a rental has made it really difficult for anybody to get in. So, what else did you see inside?
Well, first, I guess before I talked about that, one thing I've noticed recently, drove by there maybe a few months ago, is that, in California, everyone's number is painted on the curb, the number of every house, the city paints the numbers on the curb. And I have to imagine it's not a coincidence because there are dozens and dozens of houses, this really long, wide street. That house does not have a number right now. So it makes me think that in order to dissuade, I don't know, Van Halen fans and seekers, because it can't be a coincidence that that's the only house right now that does not have a number. And I also noticed that the people there have really let the shrubs and things like that kind of grow. And the house is so small to begin with that you almost can't even see the house now when you drive by it right now.
Sure.
So I feel like both of those things were to kind of like, understandably, whoever's living there, they want their privacy and they don't want, people driving by at all hours and coming up to the door or whatever. But
out back,
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. Yeah, so no, so I'll talk about, like I told you in the email, I walked out then into the backyard, and the one thing that was honestly more striking to me than the house or anything that was just so unexpected was there it was this really amazing, massive, very unique tree in their backyard that really felt like magical to me. And I was like, there's no way this wasn't a part of their childhood. You know what I mean? To have this tree in their backyard. And what was so unique about it was that it was like, very tree that had probably been there close to 100 years, very thick, probably 3 feet, 2.5, 3 feet wide trunk. But then instead of the trunk going up, like most trees do for a while, and then branching off, the other branches started almost immediately above the ground. And each of those branches is like the size of a tree trunk. So it was just like this incredible tree that you could just like climb on or sit on. It was like just this wild thing, and I was just like, I don't know. And I mean, I don't know why you would hear that they would have a tree like that in their backyard, but I was just like, wow, this is a really unique, thing to grow up with in your backyard. It was just a really interesting tree that, I feel like they must have sat on it and climbed on it when they were kids and hung out back there. And so there was
Let
that.
me ask you this about the going now. When you're going in the house, you said, let me just visualize this. You come in the living room. There's a continuation to the living room that's kind of, you said, bookshelved or
Yeah, and that's maybe I think was Alex's room, and then past that is Eddie's room. And I feel like that was kind of like screened in a little bit, maybe like it wasn't like a normal total room. It might have been like an indoor outdoor kind of space.
Right.
And then just walking out that back door, then that tree is right there, kind of on the right. And then that the garage is kind of straight back behind Eddie's room, a little to the left, maybe. And it's a freestanding, detached garage that opens out onto an alleyway that runs behind their street. So that's where the garbage would get picked up. And there was a gate there. And I went into that garage and I kind of I think knew of that as sort of the workshop where he'd maybe work on his guitars. And the house is so small that you would need to store stuff in that garage too, because there's just no room at all in that house to put anything. And like I told you in the email, I don't know if this is what it was from, but I saw there was red spray paint. I saw some red spray paint on the walls inside that garage and on the inside of the door. So I mean, it's hard not to have that pop into your head. Like, could that be 50-year-old red spray paint from when he was spraying the guitars, or it could have just been any of the other tenants that ever lived there. But it's just a funny thing that I wanted to mention because it's hard not to think like, did he spray that?
I'm
Is that where
saying, I don't
where
know.
he sprayed that guitar in here?
Somebody got in there at some point and took some pictures, and I don't know, whether it was a situation like yours where they just happened to be able to go in, and they showed that you could see the overspray.
Oh,
It's
oh, cool.
overspray,
Yeah.
black and red overspray. It's not real extreme from what I
Yeah,
saw.
yeah, no, it's just little kind of, so that's interesting. Yeah, yeah.
So I saw those pictures, and they cycled around for a little while, but yeah, there were other stories where, and in Greg's book, I think, well, if not Greg's book, if it was from Greg's sources, that he would hang those guitars out back there on a clothesline potentially when he was painting. That's how he painted them.
Mhm.
And but I'm not sure that I have anybody that. I think there might have been one person that actually happened upon him when he was doing any painting, but yeah, so much happened there, and that's
Yeah.
what's so interesting about it. People, I mean, I was talking to some other people about it, and I said, I had the opportunity when I was in Europe to visit Mozart's house, his childhood,
Yeah.
and it was an interesting, step back into history, and I don't see why this wouldn't be the same, down the line.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. No, because it's true. I mean, I also going through my mind once I realized, I don't know if I realized exactly which was Eddie's bedroom until maybe after I'd gone there and read some, but just being like, this is the room where like the greatest, rock guitarist ever learned how to play guitar, sitting right here in this room with that big tree right out back, through the windows. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I think it's, you sort of have that feeling, it's kind of a special, some special, stuff happened there.
Yeah, he talks about that a lot, about how his little bandmaster, I think it was a bandmaster, blonde bandmaster, that he would play at home, and he would write all those songs on that thing at home.
Yeah, I don't know how his parents didn't go absolutely crazy in that house, the size of
Yeah.
that house, with like someone playing drums or even a guitar, like even at a low volume, like because it's like four people living in that room that you're in there right now, with their
Right.
parents. They're
Having a
doing,
band rehearsal in this little room.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there is a story. I can't remember where I got this story, but they were practicing in there in the living room or something, and I think it was Greg, and they were playing like a full band, Black Sabbath, and Mom was in there sleeping.
That's impossible. Yeah, she must have had some pretty serious earplugs or some sleeping pills or something.
Right, or something. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man, when you think about that whole thing. And it is a beautiful street. Those wide streets are amazing. Even like from here, we have we don't have the old growth where I'm at. Not in my area right here, but that old growth and those wide streets, man, it's like they're like almost double width streets compared
Oh,
to.
that's the street that they live on, Los Lunas over there is, yeah. Not all the streets in Pasadena are like that at all, but that is like a big, really wide avenue.
It's amazing, man,
Yeah.
and so much history in that area and that house. Now, when you were saying you went straight in, you went all the way to the back with the windows. There's a photo that I have posted on my Instagram of Eddie sitting on a couch. You see some windows behind him. Looks like a paneled room. Was it paneled or painted paneling? Maybe.
I can't remember. I think it might have been paneled because, like I said before, it seemed like an indoor outdoor room, like one of those rooms where like you're indoors, but you don't feel like you're totally indoors. Like you kind of feel like you're in a porch.
That's what it looks like in the
Yeah,
picture.
yeah. I have to look at that picture. I haven't seen it, but and I'll explain now why what happened with my picture,
Oh yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah, right, right.
the
It's you had
picture that I took, which is it's unfortunate. And every time I tell a friend or anybody about this, I always just get this pang of regret. And so I actually got to go back. I went there that time, probably, wasn't there for more than like 15 minutes, probably. And I was like, and I don't even remember in 2011 or 12 if phones even had cameras back then, but I'm an artist. I know a lot of other artists. And so I had been dating a girl at this time who was a photographer. And my first thought was, it was really the tree that I wanted to take a picture of. I wanted to take some pictures of that tree and the house and everything. But so she had a really beautiful, like 35 millimeter, DSLR or camera. No, I think it was actually a film camera.
okay.
Because I wanted to get like really nice film prints and be able to blow them up large, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be so cool. So I got that from her. I don't remember how I got back in again, but I don't remember if the house was still empty. The guy must have been there. I don't know if it was 10 years ago. So I don't remember if I had made a plan with him or something. I don't think we ever called or talked or anything, but I got back in the house with this camera. And I think when I left, I said, can I come back and take pictures sometime? That must have been what it was. And he was just super cool. This guy was really chill. Like he was probably like in his early 30s or something. He's like, yeah, sure. Come back and take some pictures. So I went back, let's say it was a week or two later, spent another 10 or 15 minutes, took pictures of the inside of the house, outside of the house, backyard, inside the garage, pictures of the tree, filled up a whole roll of maybe 36 pictures or whatever on that roll of film. Took it, saw that girl again, gave it to her, and then never saw her again. And and when I talked to her, I think I, said, did you develop that film yet? I want to get that film for you. I mean, she was kind of a temperamental person, and it wasn't exactly a smooth it wasn't even really a relationship. It was kind of a casual sort of dating thing. But unfortunately for me, that's when she kind of decided to I'm not going to deal with this guy anymore, because it just felt like she gave me some excuse, like something happened to the film or she lost the film or the camera, which I knew right away was like BS. Like she just
Right.
whatever. I was just like, oh my God, I didn't even care that much about seeing her again. I wanted to get that film. And she just kept it from me, and I never got it. And there's a roll of film somewhere with those pictures, and it's just really, it's a bummer.
Well, one of the things that I thought about doing, I haven't done this yet, but and I was thinking about contacting the owner, the actual owner, and when they have a move in move out situation again, maybe he could Zoom us a video,
Yeah,
like he
that'd
could
be
go under
cool.
with his phone and do a tour, and then we put it online, and then nobody has to go by the house ever again.
People
Other than,
still,
well, I know, but it'll cure some curiosity as far as the inside goes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that would be a way to
yeah.
do that. But yeah, that's interesting. So you've been a fan a long time, I assume, like everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 52 years old now, so I guess in 78 I was 8 years old. I don't think I wasn't aware of Van Halen right probably when that record came out.
Yeah.
Um, but I do remember being in a friend's house with their older brother, in their little den and with the vinyl, and like just staring at that cover and putting that on and just listening to it again and again, and Eruption and everything, and just like how you just don't forget that, you just don't ever forget it. And the story that I have as far as I saw all the reunion tours. I saw them at the Hollywood Bowl. I think one or
Wow.
two nights when they did that. So I saw them all the reunion tours they did with Dave. But it's another kind of painful memory. Is I remember, I guess I was in seventh grade, maybe in 1984, and that was just when I started really becoming a fan.
Mhm.
And it was I was living in Massachusetts at that time, where I'm from. And I guess I could look up online and see when they played in Worcester, Massachusetts. They played at a place called the Worcester Centrum. It's called something different now, but on the 1984 tour, they played at the Worcester Centrum.
Mhm.
And it had to be in the summer, June or something. So I remember being in school. It was the last day of school, and I saw a kid in the hallway wearing, that 3/4 kind of baseball shirt, like Van Halen tour of the world in the back thing and the dates. And as soon as I saw that, I realized, damn it, they just played last night. They just played last night, and I just missed my chance to see them on the 1984 tour, which is a dream. If there's any concert I could go back in my life and see, it would be that. But I did see them in '86 on the 5150 tour at the Worcester Centrum, which was actually a great memory, seeing Eddie play that night, and just how enthusiastic everyone there was to just see him and be in his presence and listen to him play. And he was having a great time. I mean, he was drinking Heineken. He was like, when I think of him at that show, it was like he was smoking cigarettes and drinking Heinekens first, and then also playing guitar. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like that's what I felt like. He had a beer the whole time going and the cigarettes, but he was having fun, and he played really well. But yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get controversial and be into the Sammy versus Dave thing, but I don't listen to those records anymore. Any of the Sammy records, just personally, I don't like them. I think at that time, when I look back now, I was just so into Eddie and that I convinced myself that 5150 was great, and I did love it at the time, like as a 16-year-old, but those records don't interest me anymore. And I listen to Van Halen, I listen to the Dave stuff, but yeah, I'm glad I got to see that show, because in a way, even though Dave was back later with them, there was still some more of the original Van Halen energy, even in '86. You know what I mean? When I think of just Mike, first of all, just Mike being there, who never played, wasn't on any of those rock, just Mike being there, and just Eddie still playing, the red striped Kramer. It was just awesome, So it's a really good memory. But man, if I could have seen that in 1984 tour,
Yeah. I actually caught the January show in '84, and that was my first show. Like you were saying, I was like on the fringe right there of getting. I didn't catch the Fair Warning tour, unfortunately, because that would have been my dream show. Because that was what I saw that got me into them, was those videos. That was a thing for me, and a lot of people, I guess. But man, yeah, Van Halen just it had, like you said, there was something magical about the tree. There was something magical about Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen. There's just something that resonated through the world that we try to talk about and articulate, but we can't quite put our finger on that thing that happened there. He had a aura, a smile. His smile transmitted a fun that just said, "Hey, this is awesome."
Yeah, and just the playing, there's just nothing else like it. To me, it's like he's playing rhythm and rhythm and lead kind of at the same time. There's almost no distinction between rhythm and lead in a lot of ways. Like, of course, yeah, there are riffs, and then there's like, okay, this is the solo, but just the stuff he's doing in between, like he's just gliding back and forth from rhythm to lead, where it's like both of those labels start to become meaningless, because his rhythms feel like solos not always, and his leads are so rhythmic. There's just something so musical and rhythmic and natural and organic about his playing, that it's just, there's no one else like that, that's so seamlessly, just like, I don't know, I almost feel like other guitar players are like on the ground, and he's in the air, I don't know, like he's moving in an extra dimension.
It's not weird, one of the things I've been trying to do for a while now is actually come up with a good theme of my own that I could record and be in the spirit or in the vein of Van Halen. And every time I sit down to do it, I'm just like, this just I don't know why I can't do it. But I mean, I play his songs, I can play his songs, but I can't create something that feels like him.
Yeah, well, in some senses, and I'm not as familiar with their catalog, especially after Sam or even the later stuff, but in a sense, I don't want to say he stopped being able to, but I think there was even within his playing and his creativity. I mean, most artists, even the greatest ones, have a period of real, extra inspiration. You know what I mean? So like, even he couldn't, I think, keep writing riffs like that and keep playing like that. You know what I mean? So it's like,
right. The well runs a little dry at some point.
Yeah, it's different. He just got interested in different things, or whatever.
Yeah, well, like one of the things I was going back and reading through the last article with Wolfgang and Guitar World, and they were making the point that he kind of shifted his energy into his company, to his products.
Yeah, yep.
And that became sort of a focus for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
that almost supplanted his writing.
Yeah, and then even before that, it seemed like he got more into got really into keyboards, you know what I mean, too,
Sure.
to keep things fresh and interesting for him.
Right. Right.
Not that he didn't play. I mean, on those reunion tours, he was playing out of his mind. Especially one of those shows, I was with a friend, and he was just tearing it up. So we're almost looking at each other like, are we even seeing what we think we're seeing? Like, he was just playing absolutely out of his mind. I can't remember which year that was, but it was one of the shows here in LA. I don't think it was a Hollywood Bowl show. I think it was another show I saw in the LA area where, I mean, what he was doing was like, I mean, he was taking the roof off of that place with his playing. It was just it was unbelievable to
Yeah,
say.
I saw one tour that actually it was 2004, which is what most people think is one of the worst ever. But his solo spot on that was just one of the best solo spots I've ever seen.
Wow.
I don't know what it was that particular night, but he was just on, man. And I kept
Yeah.
thinking, this is what I hear in the tapes, bootlegs
Yeah.
from '78. I'm seeing it right there, and
Yeah.
it's happening right in front of
Yeah.
me.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
it hit me that way, like out of all the times I'd seen him, this one particular time, it was just so in
Yeah.
his moment.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about live music. It's like it's never every night it's different, moment to moment it's different, song to song it's different. Bands hit their stride sometimes into a set, and for the elevate for one or two songs, like it like lifts off the ground and then it comes back down. So it's like, yeah, it's
Right.
cool.
Well,
Yeah,
man, thanks for coming on and telling your story about this.
my
The
pleasure.
childhood. We never know what might happen with that house. I've talked to a bunch of people, and had ideas from everything from making it a bed and breakfast to making it to making it a place where Van Halen fans can come stay a night. And then,
No, believe me, if that owner, honestly, I don't know what he's trying. Rent around here is expensive, but if he wanted to make it to an Airbnb and market it that way,
you
he
think
would make
it
even
would,
more
right?
money. Yeah, he would. I think he would.
Maybe people would be coming and saying, he could jack the price up to where, I don't know.
People would be ripping things out of the wall. I don't know.
That's
He'd have,
true. You got that problem. You'd have to take out. Well, they might be just taking anything. They could.
right.
I'll take a piece of glass as long as it's in
Yeah.
the house, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
So
got that issue. That could be an issue for sure. But thanks again for your time, man. And if I'll be back out there. I think I'm coming back out in January. So I'll
yeah,
hit you up. We'll get together and have a beer or something.
definitely. Let me know. And I was just thinking I'll take a picture of the Maiden Lane house where they in the garage that they practiced, I'll
Killer.
try to take a
Send it
shot
to
of
me.
that.
Send it to me.
Yeah.
I'll put it on the. I have this Forever Unchained 1981 Instagram that people kind of share some
Cool.
short stories there too, and any kind of photos or anything like that you want to send me, I'll put them up there.
For sure.
Well, hey man, I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out
All
for a
right.
little while. Have a
Yeah.
great rest of the day,
Great
and
meeting you. Yep,
I'll talk to you, man. I'll be putting this up, so be watching for it.
I will.
See you, buddy. Bye bye.